Okay, there are 9 factors that affect the cash flow of a property. 9. Now, a lot of people only focus on the rent, but in fact, there are another 8 factors they're not even thinking about, and that's why they stuff it up. They buy the property thinking, what a great rental yield, but then they end up losing money anyway. Why is that so? Well, here's why. The rent is the first. There's 2 incomes and 7 deductions, right? The rent is the first one. But the tax return we receive from the government is also a form of income that a lot of investors don't think about and therefore miss out on. And then on the deduction side, we've got loan repayments, body corporate fees, council rates, and in that we include water surcharges, rental management fees, insurances, and maintenance costs. And then of course we've got the one I love the best, depreciation. Now, if we want to make the property positive cash flow, then we need to consider all of these factors. And what do we want to do with them? Well, we want the rent and the tax return to be as large as possible. And we want all of these costs to be as small as possible. If we can focus on reducing the costs and increasing the incomes, we're going to have a positive profit made from the property. Now, of course, depreciation we actually want to be the other way around because no cash is leaving our account, but the bigger the depreciation is, the greater the tax return will be. So how do we do that? Well, when we want rent, there's actually 2 elements to rent. There's yield, which is the percentage of the property's value that you get back every year in rent, but there's also vacancy. And this is where I see a lot of people make mistakes with commercial property. A lot of people go buy commercial properties and looking for that higher yield, and for 3 years they have a lease and that's great, but then they have a very long vacancy while they wait for the next business to come in. Okay, so vacancy is part of the total equation when you're calculating what rent you're going to get for a property. Now, what sort of properties do you think have the lowest vacancy rates? I can tell you, they are houses. Houses have the lowest vacancy rate. Houses in capital cities, lowest vacancy rate. As long as the landlord's not being greedy with the rent, you will always have a tenant, and when your family move out, someone else will move in pretty quickly. Okay. How do we maximise our tax return? Well, we do that through depreciation, don't we? How do we minimise our loan repayments? We go on to interest only. Now remember, with an investment property, we don't need to pay it off because we'll always have an income, so therefore we can always service a debt. Body corporate fees, how do we avoid them? Do not buy townhouses or units. There's a whole heap. I'm very much against townhouses and units. Townhouses sometimes maybe, especially if you've got a price point constraint, definitely not units. Why? First of all, capital growth is made from the land, not from the building itself. If you've got a townhouse or a unit, you actually have a very small land component and a very big building component, right? Whereas a house is often mostly land and then just the house. The other thing is, though, you get charged body corporate fees on unit and townhouses, and often they just destroy your cash flow. Council rates, avoid the high end of the market. I've lived in canal estates before, and in canal estates they actually charge, I think, about $5,000 to $7,000 a year extra rates for maintenance of that area. Also, they tend to charge a lot more rates because it's usually rates are set based on your land value, and at the higher end you charge higher rates. Rental management fees. Don't compromise on rental management fees. Pay full price for those, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're my rental manager and I want you to pay less, right? I want to pay you less money. Who are you going to work hard for? You're going to work hard for me who wants you to earn less money, or you're going to work hard for the person who pays full price? Your rental manager manages the business that is your investment property. Make sure you've got the best and make sure you pay them appropriately. Otherwise, you're going to have all sorts of other problems happen, like vacancies, tenant damages, and all sorts of things that are ultimately going to cost you way more than making sure your rental manager is paid properly. Insurances, of course, we don't compromise on insurance. We just pay them. We can shop around and make sure that the policy, we're getting covered for everything we need, and then we can go with the cheapest policy. But just make sure you don't compromise on any of the things that you need, because if you ever need your insurance policy, you really need your insurance policy. And then maintenance. The maintenance can be the silent killer. And I've had plenty of clients who come to me and tell me about their mistakes they've made before they get my coaching. And often many of them have bought old properties and end up paying 5 to 10 grand a year in maintenance. Repainting, replacing, termite eradication, all those things. If you buy a brand new property, you're not going to have any maintenance problems for a long time. And then depreciation, how do we maximise that? We buy brand new. Okay, the 9 factors that affect cash flow, remember them.
Hi there, I hope you enjoyed that. If you think someone else could benefit from that, make sure you share it with them. We'd really be grateful if you did that. And if you want to get into property investing, if you're serious about it, just send us a message. Let's have a strategy session, let's go through it. We have clients all over Australia, in fact, all over the world. And we talk to our clients either in person or via Skype, really easy to do. So don't hesitate, get in there. It's only $297 for a strategy session, and it's 100% guaranteed refundable if at the end of it you didn't feel it was worth your while. Cheers.